Mr Twyford.
Mr Speaker, Labor opposes this bill. This bill puts the final bricks in a poorly designed, badly constructed structure. If it was a building, it would be a sick, leaky building. This bill entrenches the undemocratic and over-centralised, corporatised model that this government is imposing on Auckland. Mr Speaker, Aucklanders asked for three things. They asked for three things from this government. They said, give powers, guarantee real decision-making powers to local boards. They said, stop your corporatisation agenda. Do not roll 75% of local government in Auckland into standalone corporations. They said, do not strip away the democratic safeguards against privatisation that would more easily allow the ports of Auckland to be sold off. This government has said no to Aucklanders. It's said no to every one of those claims, those demands that Aucklanders have made, and no one can deny that. The government has said that they've listened. Clearly, they have not. The context, sir, is that this bill comes at the end of a 12-month period in which this government has rammed through one of the most significant changes to our system of government in decades. They failed to consult. They have rushed the process. They've consistently made poor decisions, poor judgment calls, and it's no surprise that a solid 50% of Aucklanders in the recent New Zealand Herald Digipoll did not want a bar of this government's super city. So let's examine the claim that was made by the previous speaker and by the minister in recent days that they have listened to the Select Committee submissions, that they've listened to the people of Auckland. Well, they do a very good job, a very good impression of listening. The member for Auckland Central on the Select Committee, she was up there hugging every submitter who came along to the Select Committee, and then she turns round and votes for the very things people are arguing against at the Select Committee. John Carter, who Brian Rudman referred to as the Sancho Panza to Rodney Hyde's Don Quixote, he's the kind of kindly uncle on the national benches, the kindly uncle that was put in to clean up the mess that Rodney Hyde made, to soothe the nerves of Aucklanders. He does a very good impression of listening. He's saying, yes, yes, we hear what you're saying. Yes, every submission's got a gem in it. He's been promising for the last 12 months that this government would guarantee real decision-making powers to local boards, and they still haven't done it. There's one person, sir, who doesn't do a very good impression of listening to the public, and that's Rodney Hyde, the Minister of Local Government. He's the man who's single-handedly killing John Banks's election chances. He says he's united the region in the speech we just heard. He certainly has united the region. He's united Aucklanders in a way that they've never been united before in opposition to his policies. The minister hangs around the neck of this government's re-election chances in Auckland. Let's look at the claims. Let's look at the three claims I've made. The first about CCOs. This, sir, is a breathtaking imposition of the commercial model on Auckland local government. They are still intending to shift 75% of the assets and operations of Auckland local government into these council-owned companies. They even frightened their own friends. Michael Barnett from the Auckland Chamber of Commerce, John Banks, almost all the elected mayors in Auckland, all the councils, they all criticised the corporatisation model that this government is imposing on Auckland. Let's take the transport CCO. As my colleague George Hawkins said, it's going to spend approximately 54% of Aucklanders' rates. It's the single most important thing that Aucklanders want progress on. 4 government departments said, do not corporatise Auckland Transport. Why, sir? Because it will reduce the accountability and transparency to the Auckland ratepayer. It will reduce the transparency and accountability to the Auckland ratepayer. And yet the so-called Minister of Ratepayers over here, Mr 3%, he likes to say that that's what he's in the business of doing, accountability and transparency. But why? Why did they impose a corporatised transport agency on Auckland when no other city in New Zealand has a commercialised transport agency? Why did they do it? Blind ideology, sir. There's no other explanation for it. Why not leave it to the council to decide if they want to corporatise their transport agency? Why not leave it to the democratically elected councillors on the new Auckland Council to decide what they want to commercialise and what they want to run in-house? There is no good reason. We haven't heard a persuasive justification from the government about why they want to impose a commercial model on 75% of operations and assets of Auckland local government. There's no good reason for it. Every other council in New Zealand gets to choose. Why not Auckland? Why not Auckland? Mr Hyde is still appointing a majority of the directors to the CCOs because he can't wait 5 months for the people of Auckland to elect their representatives and let them make the decision. There's no reason this government couldn't have allowed the existing operations of Auckland to be run in the way that they are, reporting to the new Auckland Council on November 1, and then let the Auckland Council and the Mayor decide. Because that minister couldn't keep his grubby mitts off the future shape and governance arrangements of the Auckland Council because he doesn't trust the people of Auckland to make that decision. He can't resist the opportunity to impose his corporatisation agenda on our country's biggest city. Mr Speaker, nothing in this bill requires the CCOs that are going to be running Auckland to have their meetings in public. There is nothing in there that requires them to meet in public. And, sir, holding a press conference every 3 months and running a PowerPoint presentation and publishing a glossy brochure is not my definition of accountability, even if it is the definition of this minister. They promised they were going to listen, but they've insisted on ramming their CCOs and their corporatisation agenda down the throats of Aucklanders. Mr Speaker, the second issue that Aucklanders have been concerned about is the question of local boards. For the last 12 months, this government has been saying, yep, we've listened, we've heard, we're going to put the local back into local government, says John Carter, but they are continuing with their strategy of not empowering local boards. Local boards will have no regulatory powers. They will have no ability to make bylaws. And no matter how many times Rodney Hyde and John Carter go around town saying they can make bylaws, it is simply not true. They do not have the power to make bylaws. They will have no say over the 75% of issues that will be under the control of CCOs. The council has to delegate downwards, but not if they deem a matter to be better dealt with regionally. Well, Mr Speaker, you could drive a truck through that out clause. The third issue is about privatisation. Aucklanders have made it crystal clear in the last year they do not want their assets privatised. What does this government do? It repeals the provision, section 77 in the Local Government Auckland Act, which requires a referendum before the ports of Auckland can be sold. This government doesn't trust Aucklanders to make that decision on their own. They don't want Aucklanders to have a direct say on that next time they and their mates try to flog off the ports of Auckland. Sir, this comes at the tail end of a year-long process that has been utterly corrupted by this government. They have ridden roughshod over Aucklanders. They never consulted on the findings of the Royal Commission. They put out their own proposals less than 9 days after the Royal Commission tabled their report. They rammed 2 bills through under urgency. They are making some of the most fundamental governance reforms this country has seen in decades, and the process has been abysmal. The Minister of Ratepayers, Rodney Hyde, who preaches transparency and accountability, hasn't said a peep. Until this debate, after 12 months, he hasn't said a peep about what the transition process to the unified Auckland will cost Auckland ratepayers. And we heard this afternoon, sir, that it's going to cost $94 million. Well, I want to know how much of the costs of this transition and integration process have been pushed back beyond November the 1 November the 1st, so that Aucklanders will have to pay the price. And I call on the Minister to answer that question. What's the impact on rates? What's the impact on water rates?